Jonathan, it's great to be in Bristol because you're going to be the green capital of Europe. I'm not surprised because you've got a fantastic record and you've got a fantastic green mayor. But I'm also pleased because, Jonathan, you may not realise, but I'm here because of you. When I was 18, I read your book, Seeing Green, and that changed my whole perspective on politics. When I went to university, I joined something called the Student Ecology Group, and I did my first bit of political spin. I changed its name to Green Action, and ever since then, it's been my big political driver. I joined the Liberal Democrats when we were 4% in the opinion polls, so today we're doing brilliantly as far as I'm concerned. But I joined them because then, as now, we are extremely green party. And to make the next government the greenest government ever, my party will focus on two key areas. First, climate change, which is surely the world's top environmental challenge. And second, our natural world, cleaning and preserving our land, sea, and our air. Tonight I want to reveal the sheer scale of the Liberal Democrat vision for a greener environment. Before I do, I want to say a few words on the coalition. I believe when the coalition set ourselves the target of being the greenest government ever, it was not a very ambitious target. Past British governments, blue and red, had failed our environment over decades. So actually, it's not been difficult to be the greenest government ever. And actually, despite what some people would say in the press, we have been. And the record shows it unambiguously. We've doubled renewable electricity generation in just 3 years. We were only ahead of Malta and Luxembourg. That was when the Labour Party left office. We're now moving up the league. Better still, we've more than doubled renewable electricity investment. So the UK now leads Europe on clean energy investment. Offshore wind. More offshore wind than the rest of the world put together. Tidal projects, tidal power, more projects coming forward than anywhere else in the world. And so much more. The Green Investment Bank that Greg talked about, the largest investment programme in the railways since the Victorians. Britain's first ever community energy strategy. No third runway at London Heathrow. Does anyone seriously believe we would have made that sort of progress without the Liberal Democrats being in the coalition? I work very well with Greg. I really admire him. He's a very good climate change minister. But I'm afraid he's not like all the Conservatives I deal with. And my party's had to work hard to stop other Conservatives stopping onshore wind. We had a huge fight on funding low-carbon energy and achieved a low-carbon budget of £7.6 billion, way more than anyone had expected. And we stopped Conservatives closing down Natural England. And we've made them see sense on everything from plastic bags to trees. Would we have gone further, left to our own devices? You bet. We would have gone further on energy efficiency regulation. Eric Pickles has not been a fan of our proposals for regulating private landlords to force them to rent out only well-insulated homes. Eric Pickles has not been a fan of Liberal Democrat plans for zero-carbon homes. But thanks to my Liberal Democrat Bristol colleague, Stephen Williams, in the DCLG as a junior minister, he's fought like a tiger in the coalition, and we have made significant progress on these things, even if we didn't get everything that we wanted. And if we'd had the Secretary of State for Transport, for communities and local government, for the environment, food and rural affairs, if Lib Dems had been running these departments, we would have made more progress on everything from air pollution to forests. But nonetheless, I am proud of our green record in government. I know how vital Lib Dems have been to this agenda. And I know we know how to do much, much more. So let me tell you what we do in the next government. First, on climate change. Liberal Democrat policy is to go for a zero-carbon Britain by 2050. That's more ambitious than the Climate Change Act. We'd be more ambitious on saving energy. using regulations far more on everything from product standards to housing. We take forward the world's first ever low-carbon electricity market, the world's first ever low-carbon electricity market, created by the Energy Act 2013 that I piloted through Parliament. With the new market for reducing electricity demand that we've legislated for, which has its first pilot this year. We take forward Britain's first ever community energy strategy that I published this January, that aims to stimulate a massive expansion of local energy projects, building on the success that we actually have had in the last few years. We'd end unabated coal electricity earlier than now planned, and we'd accelerate the major work that I've begun on district heating networks and renewable heat, especially my view that water source heat pumps, extracting the heat energy from our rivers, lakes, seas, and our canals, is our best hope of heating our villages, towns, and cities without fossil fuel. But Britain cannot solve climate change alone, and the biggest international environmental challenge for the next government will occur in Paris in December 2015. That's the date of the Global Climate Change Summit that the United Nations has already agreed must decide on the world's first ever all-encompassing climate change deal. And because it is so soon into the next government, much of my personal time and effort, unreported and unglamorous, has been spent building the coalitions in Europe and globally so we get that vital treaty. Indeed, the best, and I'm going to be pretty immodest now, the best environmental work that I have ever done, that Liberal Democrats have ever done, that the coalition has ever done, the best has been my obsessive efforts to get the European Union to agree an ambitious greenhouse gas target for 2030. Now, I first had to succeed in persuading my British Conservative colleagues to agree that Britain would lead with the most ambitious climate change position in Europe. This was not easy. But I made myself such a nightmare because of the centrality of this to the green agenda that I won. Though, to be honest, I think they only agreed because they didn't think that I would succeed. But I'm proud to tell you, I'm very proud to tell you, and you probably have never read this, not in The Guardian, not anywhere, but we are on the brink of succeeding this October. Time prevents me from detailing the intensity of the quiet, behind-the-scenes climate change diplomacy this has required. And given we are not quite there yet in clinching the deal, I'm actually quite nervous about even talking about it. But if we do get the EU deal this October, it will be a huge step forward for a global deal in Paris, alongside President Obama's recent fabulous new regulation on American coal power plants and the work we are also doing with the Chinese, not least with our joint statement this week to work together for a climate change deal. And if Liberal Democrats are in the next government, we would drive forward relentlessly this climate change diplomacy on Europe, with Chinese, with the Indians, with developing countries, because it's the most vital work we can do. But I really want to end by talking about nature. For we have to clean and preserve the globe's ecology at the same time as we stop climate chaos. I'm proud Liberal Democrats in government fought and succeeded in saving natural England. I'm proud we pushed and got the biggest tree planting programme since the 1970s. But nevertheless, I think this area of environmental policy has not been the coalition's strongest, and the next government will have to do more. In the air, modern air pollution in our cities may be less visible than the smog of the early and mid-20th century, but for people's health, it can be just as damaging. Cars have not been getting cleaner in the way that we expected, so we need to build on the excellent work of Vince Cable in boosting electric vehicles, the work of Norman Baker on funding local sustainable transport plans focused on walking and cycling, and we need to stay in Europe to revisit the EU car emission standards that have not been as ambitious or successful as most of us had thought. I could go on, but I see I'm supposed to finish, so let me conclude very briefly. Climate change is the biggest environmental threat that we have ever faced and probably ever will. To solve it, it will take a sustained effort of British government for the next 30 years at least. It will take science and innovation, and it will take global cooperation and global generosity from the developed world to developing on an unprecedented scale. Liberal Democrats are up for that. To achieve what Liberal Democrats have achieved so far, let me tell you, we just haven't had to battle with some Conservatives. We've had to battle with Whitehall. We've had to battle with some of the big six. And we've had to battle with the odd species of Homo sapiens called climate skeptics. I think we've largely won, even if many in the Green movement haven't noticed, and we've got no credit for our wins. But if the voters, in their wisdom, do give Liberal Democrat MPs like me and Stephen Williams the chance to be in government again, I know the next government will be the greenest, because the Liberal Democrats are in it. Thank you very much.